Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg says the suspected UnitedHealthcare CEO killer may waive extradition from Pennsylvania as he retains a high-powered attorney in New York. But we're all wondering how Luigi Mangione went from a promising UPenn graduate to an alleged murderer. New York City Mayor Eric Adams thinks it could have been his education. He says, quote, Mangione found himself hating corporations and hating other things. We're radicalizing our children in general, but specifically on these Ivy League campuses. The far left media, however, is blaming the healthcare industry, and Democrats are right there with them.
This is not to say that an act of violence is justified, but I think for anyone who is confused or shocked or appalled, they need to understand that people interpret and feel and experience denied claims as an act of violence against them.
Violence is never the answer. This guy gets a trial who's allegedly killed the CEO of UnitedHealth. But you can only push people so far. And then they start to take matters into their own hands.
Murder is murder, and it is totally unacceptable. But I think the outpouring that we have seen indicates that there's a lot of frustration and anger at a healthcare industry.
Yeah, Jackie, I kind of pull Elizabeth Warren out of that because I think she was the most egregious in there. But we look at AOC and Bernie Sanders. They're trying to kind of both sides a little bit. Do you think they have a point that somehow this is indicative, I guess, of people's sentiment?
It's not an acceptable point because every one of those sound bites started with violence is not okay or justifiable. But here's why I could understand why this young man was angry enough to go kill somebody. Listen, we have a lot of problems with our healthcare system in this country, but we do not use guns and shooting people in the back as a way to air our grievances and try to work things out. We have conversations. Government can make reform. President Trump is coming in. Hopefully he'll do some things. Ultimately, what's happening with the Democrats is they're looking at this and saying, well, people are so angry, so there is some justification for why he did this. A couple of things we do know at this early juncture in the case: he didn't even have United Health insurance. He did have some sort of a surgery, but there's no evidence that we know that he had any kind of claim denied. So we still don't really understand what his personal motive is to bring it back to Mayor Adams and talking about the indoctrination at Ivy League schools. I think there may be something there when these professors come into the classroom and they tell you how unfair the world is and how capitalism is awful and it's evil and it's, you know, going after the little guys. So you have kids coming up thinking that they need to take matters into their own hands. Doing it with guns is not the way you do it. You have conversations and elicit reform.
Can I just say, Joey,
Sure.
You know what? I've been a reporter for 30 years, 23 years here at the Fox News Channel, and then before that, local stations all around the country. I've covered so many high-profile murders. I've never seen so little emphasis on the murder victim. I mean, this is a man. He is a father. He's a husband. He's a father of 2 teenage boys. They are not going to have their father for Christmas this year, next year, or any year after that, or for any other major event in their lives. And I have heard hardly any coverage on this. I am shocked.
Yeah, to go back to the point that Mayor Eric Adams made about the UPenn education and what's happening there, I want to show this screenshot. It's of a UPenn professor, and he's celebrating the murder on TikTok. If we can pull it up here. And so there we go. So, or it's a her. I apologize. I believe. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say either. But if you read it there, but if you read it there, basically they're celebrating this. They're saying, you know, hey, this is a good thing, I guess. You're a well-educated guy. Is there a connection there between someone being so radicalized that they would murder someone and what we have complained on this network and on the right of indoctrination, or at least an overexposure to radical ideas in higher education?
I think that effect is real and a problem. I'm not sure we have a direct connection with this case because there's still a lot that we don't know. With this particular young man, there's rumors that he was radicalized over something else. And if you look at his social media footprint, he's kind of all over the place ideologically. He may have had some sort of surgery problem, and we don't know. So I want to be careful about that.
Yeah.
Going back to the montage that we played of those 3 legislators, they all said the word but, which is such a grotesque qualifier in this context. They are also all supporters of government-run single-payer health care. That's their alternative. That's their plan. And that's what they're sort of boosting through the back door here to say, oh, well, we don't condone murder, but under the system, people get really angry. I just want people to understand, under the Canadian or British healthcare system, which is what they want in our country, those three lawmakers, there are people who get denied care every single day. More frequently.
Wait time.
There's rationing all over the place done by the government, which is the final arbiter, and there's no appeal. So, you know, I think it's important to point that out. We may have issues in our system, but their alternative, their so-called solution, I think, on this front, if that's what they want to talk about, is worse. The last point I'll make was AOC saying, well, you have to understand, if you're appalled by this, people who get their claims denied, that's an act of violence to them. So sometimes violence begets violence. That's what she's trying to say. And I think that is such a Pandora's box, especially for someone in the public eye like her. What if someone who was deranged, God forbid, decided that some vote that she cast was an act of violence against them? Is that now justification to go take a potshot at a member of Congress? Absolutely not. And to blur some of those bright lines is extremely irresponsible.
No, absolutely. It wasn't acceptable with Eric Rudolph. It wasn't acceptable when they tried to glamorize the Zarnov brothers, and it's not acceptable now. I do want to point out that the professor from UPenn, I don't know their name, so I'm not going to say it, they did apologize. But if that's their initial reaction, I think that speaks more than the apology.
Trying to save her job, I think, is what she was doing.
All right, coming up on the big weekend show.